Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Before we start, I'd like to make a motion to add executive session for personnel after 5.1, so I guess we'll make that 5.1, it is 5.2, I guess.
No, it would be 6.1
Oh.
and then 6 and 7.
Oh, okay, yes, okay. Do I have a second?
I think it.
Been moved and seconded to add an executive session for personnel after 5.1. Any discussion?
But,
Yes.
Bose,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Studeville. Yes. And Tisdale.
Yes.
Goodman. Yes. Motion passed.
Consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the June 9th, 2025 Board of Education consent agenda. Any further discussion?
But,
Yes.
Bose,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Studeville. Yes. And Tisdale.
Yes.
Goodman. Yes. Motion passed.
Patron input. Do we have anything, Katie?
No.
Okay, 4.0 discussion. 4.1 review of Vision 2025 strategic plan.
Now, you guys all have a copy in front of you. So as you know, the last 4 months, we've had internal and external stakeholder meetings. You guys have listened, we've taken some notes, and now's kind of the next steps on putting it together and giving me some thoughts and ideas so I can start working on a new one. As Mr. Foot and I met last week, as I heard, and I wasn't at every table, so definitely don't want your input, but as you see at the top, definitely we'll have, it doesn't have to have a name. In 2018, the board chose to use Vision 2025. It could just be the strategic plan or whatever. So that, as I heard, will obviously have to be one item of discussion. I didn't hear, and if there's 6 of you, I mean, Mr. Apple's not here, I didn't hear anything regarding the mission or vision statement.
I did,
Okay.
and I'm thinking back on that, I did hear a little bit about the vision statement, and maybe even the mission statement too. So maybe we, you know,
Go through those.
I mean, not a lot, but I did hear a few comments.
And then I know there was a lot in core beliefs, and so, and then the 5 goals, I didn't necessarily hear that we've changed the 5 goals, but definitely there were conversations on below there with targeted areas. So that's kind of my summary is when we had them at the high school trying to bounce from table to table. And then obviously the last 2 we had out here. So I guess now we can go back to the top and you guys just have conversations and we'll write down, and then I'll bring kind of a draft next month. And then even if we don't like this format, you let me know. I can look up other districts. We can totally, you know, redo it. We know the plan obviously is to get a new one approved sometime this year. So what wants to start?
Yeah, something that I wanted to change. I know last time we did it, in 2017, we did it 8 years.
Yeah.
I think we should get,
7.
I think we should do like a 10-year, either 2035 or, you know what I'm saying, like, and try to do it on, you know, measures like that, so.
Does the board have any desire to call it something? Or is it just now Vision 2035 or,
That's kind of good where you have what year the vision, you know, mind that.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with just
Change
changing it to
2035.
2035.
so Vision 2035? So the mission statement, to educate each student in a safe and nurturing environment. So thoughts or what you maybe heard on the mission statement?
Had people that talked about adding like a clean environment, but I think that should go down under facilities. I think we do a really good job, like when we in our facilities, keeping them up to date and clean and inviting. So I think just reiterating that under facilities.
The comments that I heard about the vision statement, you know,
Vision and mission.
vision,
Okay, so mission, we're good?
I didn't hear a lot.
Okay.
I mean, there was just a couple comments, but on the vision, you know, people, you know, they question me, what exactly does that mean? That vision statement, I mean,
So a little history even for some. So if you look up the state departments, so KSDE's vision statement is that Kansas leads the nation in the success of each student. That was already in place in 2018. So that vision statement was kind of mirrored after KSDE. So if you look up the state departments, there says Kansas leads the nation in the success of each district or of each student. So at that time, the board thought, well, maybe our district can do that as well. So that was kind of some historical context behind that vision statement. And remember, mission is what we're about. Vision is where we want to, our hopes, where we want to go.
okay, yeah.
I think some things are brought up, like what is what does that mean? Like success mean, like, what are we talking about, like, you know, like the whole success of the whole person, you know, versus just academics. I feel like was kind of
Yeah,
brought up.
I feel like maybe somebody even said if you added the word individual, I don't know that that changes it a whole lot, but it's more about each,
Holistic
right,
success.
in the individual success of each student.
And I think maybe even inserting the word, you know, behind 416, but, you know, like strives to lead, you know, because, I mean, are we actually leading or if it's our vision to strive to lead. I think that was the point that was brought up.
We would put individual before success or before student.
Before success,
It would make more sense that way.
individual success. And that way it's more about each child. I don't know. I just remember that someone mentioned that.
So USD 416 strives to lead Kansas in the individual success of each student.
I like that.
Anything else?
Or something along those lines. I don't know, some that's just coming up with the right words.
Core beliefs, I know this will more discussed, some redundant, combining some. What did you hear, or where do we go with these?
I think we should have like 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Like 8 seems like a lot.
I know safety is in our mission, but I think safety, somebody wanted, you know, its core belief is one of our main goals now.
You know, you could, I mean, there's, one of them's provide a sound education. And then it's provide a wide range of educational programs and experiences. I mean, we could probably combine that and include safe, sound education with a wide variety or a wide range of educational programs and experiences.
I had put encourage students in the quest for knowledge and provide a sound education in one. Or I had tied those two together. Like they could go together too.
Okay.
So the first one, and what was the other one?
And then provide a sound education.
So that would say encourage students in the quest for knowledge while providing a
Or
sound.
by providing
Yeah,
a safe
maybe.
and sound.
Education.
Someone, I wrote down, so one group must have said, I wrote define. So like, did some group say, do we need to define what a sound education is? I don't know what.
Yeah, I
group.
think
That was Pat.
Oh, okay, I can't remember who said that, but I wrote that down. I don't know if we need to, I was just.
I think the last two are the ones you were talking about, Jim, that combine those two, is that it, the last two?
Well, he
Well-
was kind of on that sound education.
I think
Sound education, yeah, I had
Joanne's
that all
want to
together.
put those two together.
It doesn't matter. I'm just. I do think that the last two go together. Right? I mean, you do one,
Yeah,
you,
I feel like the last
The other,
3 go
the other
together.
two that,
I put them together for a little bit too.
The other two that came up in my groups were develop a global appreciation and awareness and develop a love and respect for our nation.
Yeah, I had that one.
People thought that should be combined.
Yeah, I had that one.
And Brian, I feel like we could, the words don't have to be exactly
Right.
like, you know, like this, just. It's starting to come up with different words for us to use over here, but yeah.
And I feel like numbers 2 and 3 go together also. Teach students to respect themselves and others and develop honesty and integrity. I feel like those two could even go together.
Yeah.
So what are we trying to, like, are we just trying to condense it to like 6?
5, I heard.
Five?
What's that?
I said 5.
I think we could get to
I like
4,
that.
quite honestly, if we,
No more than 5.
Yeah.
But you just combine the last two.
Mhm.
Just more words.
So if I combine the last 2, and then Rob's point, and I did hear, I mean, safeties, if we actually want that word in there, so
Well,
right now.
if you say safe and sound on the, you know, when you combine that with number 1.
Okay. Safe and sound. So we're gonna combine, if you're counting down on the first column and down on the right. 1 and the second one on the right.
Yeah.
And then the 2 and 3 on the left,
Mhm.
4 on the bottom and 1 on the top, and then 7 and 8 on
Yep.
the bottom, or the back, 3 and 4.
Mhm. And add safety in there somewhere.
Yeah, under that right side, 2 and 3.
Yep.
That gives us to 4. Okay. Then under academics, so the goal is in the kind of hard to read purple, and then the targeted areas. I didn't have a lot in that one. I have more notes than the other ones. but
Yeah,
you
it was-
guys do.
I didn't have a lot down there either. It was more up towards the top.
Did anyone have anything that they wrote down in the academics goal?
Not in
No.
academics.
Under community. I just had like engaging community, sense of belonging, student engagement. You guys had in community.
I don't know if we want to use the word transparency, but, and that was kind of the vibe I feel like we got. I think it was with the
The first or the
Broadmoor
second, yeah,
one?
yeah.
But maybe something about transparency.
So is that, so there's 4 targeted areas. Is that gonna be a new one, or are we adding transparency to one
I
of those?
feel like maybe we could add it in one of the current ones.
Under
Maybe
Probably
community.
go with the first one, couldn't it? Promote positive and transparent
Public
public
relations.
relations.
Like-
Yeah. I think something that came up in one of my groups too under that was, you know, and, you know, some people, you know, they wished that we had a little bit more, and we were, and I guess it was more towards the, you know, our social media being more out there. Well, just, I mean, it's hard to be, you know, each school has their own, you know, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or whatever. But if there was something for the entire school district that was a little more out there,
Like 1-5.
Centralized.
one centralized,
Yeah.
So like one face, like a Facebook page, for example, for the district, that maybe each school shared.
have a
that
link,
too.
yes,
Yes, that,
for all their stuff.
Yeah, that they would, yeah.
so we kind of talked about needing like a, what do we call that person?
Communications
Communications,
director.
thank you, director. Jenny just volunteered, she said, came up with the word for me. But I don't know that goes into a goal or a target area, but.
And do we have a class that, like a high school class that could?
Well, don't we have a media class or something like that, Amy?
Their platform is a little more like It's not just, it's not social media, but,
Oh.
you know, pictures and videos and.
Or is it something that maybe that you might be able to integrate?
I don't know, I'm just thinking it could be a learning opportunity
Yeah.
and, I don't know.
We have to visit with legal, I don't know, high
I don't know
schoolers.
that you.
Oh, yeah.
Plus then just the
Oh.
natural feedback that comes by doing that. I mean, if that's the board's, I think that, you know, district, we obviously have our website. We have updates that go on there from, whether it's my monthly newsletter or other updates on the main page. All the buildings plus clubs and sports have their own.
Sure.
I don't know from,
Or maybe you just made it, a rule that all of those clubs and so forth have to share it to the, or tag like the district page or something. Does it all show up that way?
So I try, like, so when Amy puts something on Twitter or whatever, or X, sorry, I try to look at that every once in a while and pull it, and then I pull it into the website. But yeah, there's not a real good right now mix of that. But I also try to get photos from like the yearbook people, the students that take photos. So I pull wherever I see things happening. But right now, yeah, they're not talking to each other. It's just I kind of pull stuff.
So maybe just somewhere in that, maybe in like that strategic communication spot that we just put like that will continuing, you know, to update or modify it. I don't know the words. I'm struggling with words.
as I understand, I mean, the central, but you actually potentially are adding just, I mean, if you only have a high school kid, then I don't think we're not hearing that the high school is not providing whether it's clubs or the high school itself. So having it on the main district page, what would that?
I just mean filtering it through,
There was just,
There
there
be
was some
similar
discussion at my group, or one of my groups about it would just be easier if there was a central location to get everything, to get all the links. And that was, I had it that one night. It was, I think it was the Broadmoor night. It's when that came up. Which probably was the most engaging night we had.
So like all school events. In one
They just want, they talked about wanting a centralized location to get information for all of the different social media.
social media.
Mhm. So I don't know, I mean, logistics on that may not be very easy because
Without a dedicated communications director
Right.
at this time.
it'd be a lot on your page or your lab. But, you know, that would be something that we could work towards in the future.
I'll add something like what Jennifer said
And
on that
just-
second one, continue to
And-
update, explore opportunities, enhance communication, something like that.
Something like adapting communication practices to meet the evolving needs of the district.
There
Maybe.
you go. Look at that, you found your words.
Well, I had a
So
little,
is that a fifth targeted area or are you changing the second one?
and I'm just changing the second one.
So take out provide a strategic communication
I
system
mean,
and do what you just said?
I'm not saying we
No,
have to
that's,
do that,
you just
but
give me,
No, I think that's, I think what you said is very
can you
good.
say it one more time?
sure can. What did I say?
You lost it again.
Adapting or adapting?
Adapt communication practices to meet the evolving needs of the district.
Practices.
10 years, might be totally different.
Communication
X could
practices
be gone.
to meet.
Meet the evolving needs of the district.
Facebook will be like MySpace.
Yeah.
Needs.
What does it say? Facebook
Something
is,
like that.
Facebook is a boomer.
I'm pretty sure I still have a MySpace and I can't get rid of it because I don't have the email address anymore.
Still got an Napster
I
account?
don't think so. I don't know. No.
Okay, anything else on that one? Okay, so I'll change that second one to adapt communication practices to meet the evolving needs of the district, or should I say the community?
Can we, yeah, I guess
I don't know.
community.
Start with- Facilities target area, I know Sarai mentioned, clean, and then obviously I think we know this is where safety's gonna go, so where do we put those?
I think on number 4, we put continue to develop long range, because that, we're doing that. So,
So where clean would go on number 1?
I think the build, like, I think we should put, I mean, everything else is like provide positive public relations, and then in there, just a target area is building facilities and operations. I feel like both of those could be like
Provide clean and safe building
facility and
facilities.
operations, provide state-of-the-art activity facilities and something along those lines.
Mhm.
I mean, up above, we talk about how we want activity programs, educational, facilities, equipment for our educational and activity programs that are the pride of the community. So,
Okay, so
and I feel like we're working on that right now, but
we'll provide state-of-the-art activity facilities and operations, so put that, provide state-of-the-art activity facility
well, I'm not,
operations.
well, or what, you know, I don't know if it needs to be state-of-the-art, but you know what I'm saying, or whatever the.
Are you just saying
comparable-
like the first two just seem like they're just like a, not
Well, I
really a
think-
statement very
Yeah,
much there?
building facilities that clean and safe building.
So provide clean and safe facilities and operations.
Yeah,
Strike
and
the
you
word
could, and
building.
then we could go into how we're supporting facilities by continuing to,
update,
whether it's improved or modernized.
update and modernize.
Yeah,
Or do you say provide adequate activity facilities and operations?
I don't like adequate, that this is
Yeah,
par.
that just like,
Yeah.
just good enough.
Mhm.
So on the first one, I'm gonna say provide clean and safe facilities and operations, strike the word building. Second. If we wanna use the word provide again.
Mhm. And then for provide.
Words. Synonyms.
Are you looking for
I'm looking
words
at,
again?
I really was looking up some. Furnish. Contribute, pledge. Put forth.
I mean, I'm just looking at what we start, most of those start, we use ensure, I mean, can we ensure we have proper activity facilities and operations?
Can those two not be one?
I think they
I
can.
think they can.
And then we don't have to worry about.
well,
you
the
know,
only
we
reason
use
only reason I think you're doing it separate is we have our buildings, which are our main, but then we also have our Wildcat Activity Center, we have our, you know, JV baseball fields, we have our soccer fields, we have, you know what I'm saying, I think those are activity centers.
And if we're trying to be, it looks like we are gonna have still 4 targeted areas below each one, not that that's a deal breaker, but if we wanna stick with 4, so if we add, combine them, do we add a?
I think you need to combine 1 and 2.
Well, and I guess to Sarai, I completely agree, but then I also think we want to maintain them equally.
Yeah.
So I guess in my mind, that's why I think they can go together.
So just drop the words operation, and that would say provide and building, so provide clean and safe facilities and activity facility, that's saying.
What about the
Facilities
facilities?
would cover all of them, right?
Yeah, yes,
Mhm.
So just, it'll say provide clean and safe facilities.
Well,
yes.
but I also think we need to put in there, like, whether it's modern or, because there's always gonna be that ongoing updating of things that we do.
Up to date.
Yeah, to provide
So did I say up to date or modern?
modern facilities,
So provide clean, modern.
modernized, I don't know, or if that's the word or what, but I think saying, because we do a lot of update,
You know,
ongoing maintenance and everything to keep our,
do you guys like the word modern or up to date better?
I think modern.
Okay, so that's gonna say provide clean, modern and safe facilities. It's gonna take out the top two. So are we good with just three or is there a target
Well, I
area?
think you need to add something in there about safety.
Safety, yeah.
Always, what we're saying, just the word safe in that one, that's.
That's
one.
true.
I mean, if you wanna add more, we can, but
I mean,
they don't have to be four, I just.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or I don't think, I don't know why we couldn't just add in there at the bottom, something along the lines of, something to the effect of, making sure that all are for prioritizing safety
Well, I had changed,
of all students and faculty
I
and
had
staff.
kind of changed up the fourth one, and I'm only jumping ahead to this one just because I used the word prioritizing. But instead of develop, I had used continue prioritizing long-range capital plans,
There you go.
because I feel like we are doing that.
Right.
But if you were reading this, you might not know that.
Right. Because it's saying we need to develop, we've already developed that.
Right, and we
So-
are prioritizing it.
Right.
So continue to prioritize, and we'll strike develop long-range capital plans. So do you want me to add a fourth one to bring back to you to specifically on safety?
I
Yeah.
think you do. I think we need one.
So I
What if
will.
I'm sorry, are you putting those two together?
So what I
Trying to figure
hear
out.
from you is the top two, so it'll say provide clean, modern and safe facilities. That will be the top two, not touching the third one and then the current third one. The current fourth one will say continue to prioritize, goes into long range. And then I will write one on safety to bring back to you. So that one will still have four when you see
Something about secure, yeah.
safe and secure facilities. I'll find someone's. Personnel, I didn't have anything on personnel, but open to you guys.
Yeah, I didn't have anything either.
Anyone have anything on personnel?
I mean, I guess kind of along the lines of what Joanne just said, like we're already happy, like the last one year developed mentoring program. We have a mentoring program,
Sure.
so maybe something along the lines of like continuation of that versus the development of it. Wait,
Would we say that then on, I'll take the top one. Do we want-
right? I guess.
I mean, I
True.
don't know which ones do we.
That's true.
And what I heard in the fifth one on technology, and I circled back to Joe Aaron's favorite word in the second one.
Just strike adequate.
Adequate.
Yeah, any word that it's,
So
Yeah,
the-
it was used a lot.
I don't like it either.
And then I circled, in the third one, the word, I think someone, I don't know if it's group or you guys said what's necessary, so just, do we not say just provide the funds? I had necessary circled too, so we just strike necessary.
I would be okay with that. I mean, I think just cleaning it up and unnecessary words
Right.
in there.
So that one, so provide technology, professional development for all staff. The next one, provide the funds, provide students and staff with reliable, and here's the,
Oh.
so what would I?
Up to date or
Or would we just say with reliable, take out and
Current.
adequate?
Well, I don't even like the word reliable
Okay.
necessarily. I mean, I'm okay with reliable over adequate.
what
Definitely.
about current?
The current sounds like.
With, I mean, or even modern, I don't know. I mean, I think about the laptops that we're purchasing. I mean, those are really nice laptops, right?
Or maybe this is where we end. we put in up to date, because that's what technology you do want to
Yeah.
make sure that they
Yeah,
have.
and current gets the job done too.
So do we strike reliable and adequate, or for adequate, I'm putting it up to date?
Well, I mean, if they're, I
It
think,
should
I
be
think.
reliable.
Better be
They're
reliable.
up to date, they're
Yeah.
reliable.
Okay.
I think-
I mean, if they're up to date, they are.
Yeah, so I think you can scratch.
So I'm
both
just gonna
words.
say with up to date technology resources. Anything else? Obviously, we won't be approving it next month. This gives me enough to at least. And do you like this format, or would you like, because Max Sarai changed the calendar that everyone loves now, and I give him credit for that. So would you like to see it a new format? I can try to put in a new, still trying to get it on one page, but do we change the look of that? Or do you like that look just with the updates?
I don't think it would hurt to have variations of it,
Okay.
to whether it's modernize it or bring it up to date. I know we use a lot of these words, but I think
I mean, I'll bring you
Change
back,
it.
I'll bring you back an adequate. Yeah, I'll bring you some different options just to look at. I mean, that helps, but.
I don't know, I think if we change the overall appearance of it and with the changes we're making, it would give it, like, obviously it's a fresh vision of what
Fresh, that's.
we want to see, and we're making changes to it. So, I mean, obviously visually, I think it would be
I agree.
good to do. So,
We'll do that, bring that back as another round look at that in July. Thank you.
Okay. Point 2, discussion of 2025-2026 needs assessment.
All right, as the board knows, part of the budget setting process is the annual needs assessment. The board also sets on the site councils, so you've been a part of those conversations as well. Tonight's really just first look at it, get our building principals input as well. So the first document I have is, and it's the one that is full, it's filled in on the far right, but I think it's important that we reflect and review last year's. And so, and we met with the building admin team today. So if you have that first document, and it should be the one, like I said, has the board rationale comments, we're actually looking at the current year one until the end of June. So as we go through those, a lot of things say similar things, so I'm just kind of looking at the Rockville Circle Grove one. Continued improvement for school safety, and you can see that is said throughout. As I reflect on that one, when we met today, like I said, with our building principals, what we've done in that area, we added another SRO. We continued to update our cameras. We actually made, now it's easier access, and so it is a safety thing for our parents and students and staff that have ADA concerns. If you've been now to the middle school and Broadmoor, we've added ADA push buttons outside. Those used to not be there. There's now a pole out there. We've added additional card readers. So like at Broadmoor, the north doors of the playground used to not have those in case something was happening where we needed to get those kids in the doors. So a lot of things on school safety. We know, and I know our staff appreciates the continued increase in pay and benefits. Chronic absenteeism. And next month, Mr. Tappan will share with you guys absenteeism data. We were looking at today with the principals, but that's not all finalized yet. The state, we still need to work on some reporting. And regarding that, and what is also in here, on assessment scores. So Mr. Tappan has shared with you guys that this year, the state assessments our kiddos just took, they're gonna be cut scores. And so in years past, the motion to approve the budget supposed to mention state assessment scores and the needs assessment. We don't know exactly, since we don't have assessment scores to show you during this budget setting process, what that might look like. So, but we'll have a better clarity on Thursday. Katie and I are going down to Greenbush for the budget workshop. So we'll be asking KSD, I assume other districts might be asking that same question. So I don't know how much Mr. Tappan will be able to share next month on assessments because we don't have them. Maybe it'll just continue to talk about you know, the historical ones, which obviously we have that. So we'll have a little more clarity, because this will still be a discussion item even at the July meeting. Continued support for PLCs, MTSS, and other areas of PD, so professional learning communities, our building administrators and Mr. Tappan are taking teachers to St. Louis for a national PLC conference in a couple weeks. We do a lot of work with that throughout the year. MTSS, that there's a state conference in September in Wichita, and obviously we do a lot in that as well. And then other areas of PD that are needed. Continued support with technology. Structured literacy, we're doing a lot with that. In fact, that's now a requirement for many of our teachers in the district to have that on their license for the next license renewal. So you might have heard that we're doing a lot of letters training, and so that's a structured literacy program, as well as ESOL resources. We did this year start looking at ELA resources this upcoming year. And we've already identified teachers at each grade level, pre-K-5, that will be piloting ELA resources. And then Mr. Tappan will bring a recommendation for a new pre-K-5 curriculum in April of 2026. So that one will stay on there. And then the rest of it, like I said, deals with state assessment. So this was just kind of a review of what we put in. You probably talked about that as you work through the building needs assessment for next year with the buildings this year, especially the 4 of you that sit on site council. So just wanted, before we jump to this year, kind of look at what we put in and where we've been. And I think we definitely have targeted a lot of those areas, and hopefully we do the same with the one we're about ready to create. So any questions on that one? Okay, if you pull the next document, it's the draft form of the current needs assessment, but the big sheet is really a culmination of what you see there, and then obviously the board rationale and comments are not filled in. This is where we will, just like we've been doing with the strategic plan, start having conversations, and then obviously the principals are here for some conversations as well. So if you're looking at the packet, you can see the first school in this documentation is Circle Grove in Rockville. Remember, Circle Grove doesn't have and you can see that at the top, a building number. So the state building number for Rockville Elementary is 5980. Circle Grove falls under that. So for any state reporting of kids or anything else, there's a program called the Kids System. It all goes under there. But we felt like it's still important to include Circle Grove. And obviously we know we have a great preschool that the kiddos, Mrs. Crater knows the kiddos that come to Rockville that have been out at Circle Grove. They're much better prepared and just not academically, behaviorally, socially. We have some great teachers and a wonderful principal down here. So as we look through there, and I know this is your first read, any questions? Because what's happened was, so there's 2 documents for each school. You have the Circle Grove, Rockville one, so that goes on for roughly 5 pages in your packet. There's a lot of questions that Dave and Janelle work with their staff and their site councils on. And then it goes into the Broadmoor packet, the middle school and high school. And on the needs assessment, and this is all currently published on our website, and this document, when it's approved, will be on our website as well. Then we get into, if you go in the packet, these documents, and really what these are is what's on your big 11 by 17. So
Who's the board member that leads the assessment on these 2 buildings?
So Pat is for Rockville and obviously Circle Grove. Jen does Broadmoor. Lanny is at the middle school, and Joe Aaron is at the high school. And unless that changes at next organization meeting, but for these conversations, it would be those 4. So I believe if you pull that 11 by 17, and then yes, the board members over there, obviously for the first one, Pat won't be here, but Janelle and Dave, if you want to come up. So yeah, pull that big one that doesn't have the far right. So you can see barriers that Janelle worked with the site council and her teachers. It just says all now, yeah, this big document is where we're at. Just reading. Teachers must have adequate professional development in science and reading, such as letters, volume 1 and 2 training, having time in the schedule for adequate instruction. We'll take that word out. Having the appropriate number of support staff to ensure, we'll take that word out. Student support, needing to adopt an explicit, systematic, and evidence-based core ELA service. We need to ensure staffing in time for MTSS interventions. So that was all under barriers related to students, and where you'll find that information is in your packet, and that's on these one-page documents. So like if you would pull up Surf Roman Rockville, exactly what I read is right there. Budget action, the most essential budget action will be the cost of piloting and adoption of resources for English language arts, timing, a lot of that language is similar. So Janelle, I guess, and Dave, I'll let you, why did you target that area as a need? So, and then obviously any barriers or budget items for that?
All right, so with our KISA and accreditation, it's really important. We're gonna focus on structured literacy, and we need to move into that, a resource that allows us to have that. Right now, our resource is a little bit older, and it isn't based on the science of reading. So that's kind of based on the state's drive for the science of reading, and included in that then would be letters training, because after 2027, our elementary teachers will have to have a seal of literacy, and that one of the ways to do that is by taking letters 1 and letters 2, and then they pass that with 80% proficiency. But to actually be able to renew your license, you're going to have that. So I love that Louisburg is doing that.
And we've been sending teachers
Yes,
to
we have.
Greenbush to do that, right?
Yes, but then Kim Parentis, who obviously many of you know, worked for us, lives here, is a certified trainer for Greenbush. We've actually brought her here, and so we've been having training here, mostly ours, but there's been like 9 different districts or so that have been coming here throughout the year. We are paying our staff to take that, and so I know they're very appreciative. They get a stipend. They have to go to the classes, and then there's homework to do. And then once they get a certificate of completion, we are paying them $750 for volume 1 training, and then $750 when they complete volume 2. So we have some teachers that are completely finished. We have some that are volume 1 completed. We have some volume 2. Our administrators are doing it as well. We have some teachers though that are not doing it, and that's okay. They know they're close to the end of their career and will either retire before that regulation's in place, or teacher licenses are 5 years. And so if they can renew, say, next year, and so that's kind of where we're at in the letters rainbow of where we're at with volumes 1 and 2 is across the landscape. But most of our teachers, especially our young teachers, are going through volumes 1 and 2. There is a new program that the state's going to allow them to test out. I've heard from some very strong teachers and actually experiences that that's almost impossible to do. So we are going to allow that. We will not pay them to test out, but I've heard from several that that's not an easy thing to do. And then yes, we are piloting. We're down to 2 pilot resources, correct?
Yes, so last week we had 12 of our K-5 teachers here at the district office working together on rewriting our pacing guides for our English language arts curriculum. And as part of that, we also were looking at our new resources, because as Dr. Bierman mentioned to you earlier, I'll be coming to you next spring with the resource adoption recommendation. So we've narrowed it down to 2. 2 teachers at each grade level will be piloting the resource. They'll be piloting one of those resources starting in August till through first semester, and then the second resource, those same 2 teachers will be piloting that second resource in the spring from give or take January till March or April, when we would come to you with a recommendation for one of those.
And that is a new strategy that I've asked these 2 and Cindy if our teachers would do. It's no different than if, our spouses give us the authority, let's go look at a car. If you only go drive one car, that's probably the one you want, versus then if you got into another car, you could truly, because in the past, what we've done is we've had one teacher stay in that one resource and another one, and they talk about it. But now what he just mentioned, this one's going to drive that resource for 3 months, and then they're going to flip. So they're gonna drive 2 cars now. And so I didn't know what the teachers thought would be, and I wasn't in this room when you told them that, so maybe they didn't like my idea, but,
They're appreciative of the idea.
okay. So I
But we
think
will have 2 teachers at each grade level pilot the first one, and then those same 2 teachers will pilot the second resource.
So drive the same car and then they'll switch.
So we're at four
Same
cars.
drivers, 2 different cars.
Yes. So, because before it was like, no, buy the Honda, buy the, the Toyota, and now they'll have done both of those. Then the last sentence, we need to ensure staffing and time for MTSS intervention, so maybe there's a little bit about what you mean by that, Janelle.
So we've had great success with our walk to interventions and just making sure that every student has what they need. So whether that is they need extra support because they're not quite at grade level, or whether that is they need to be enriched. We want every student to get what they need. So we have that dedicated time in our schedule where we have an hour in each grade level, 30 minutes for reading and 30 minutes for math. And I'm really proud of the work that our team has done. We've really moved from individual, like one teacher, one class, to a whole grade level to we are working together to ensure that every student has what they need to succeed. So I really appreciate having had that time, and I hope that that is something that will remain. It's something I believe will remain. So I know that the professional development that we do, like when we go to the MTSS symposiums, to allow teachers to know what interventions to put into place, is super helpful. And just the staff to do that, because it is an all hands on deck. It's our support staff, sometimes it's our instructional aides, it's our title teacher, it's our SPED teachers, and all of our classroom teachers. And what we are looking at is our professional, our experts are the ones who are working with our kids who are below grade level in the smallest groups. And then we move on up into our support staff, and that can support our kids who are more on grade level and a little bit larger settings. But it has, we've had great success with that, and I'm really proud of that.
How are we doing with being fully staffed there?
Hourly.
We're doing great with our teachers. I think sometimes, and we're doing great with our instructional aides and our teacher aides. We still always have a little bit harder time always fully staffing our parents.
Where are we at with that?
How many do you think you're short on the paraprofessionals?
Well, and our needs will change with our students. I think we're probably about 2 to 3 short right now.
And we're advertising for those always. I know
Always.
always, but yeah.
And every building is short on the paraprofessionals, but as she says, based off need, obviously we've done the kindergarten screening, but that could ebb and flow, or obviously if we get a kiddo in that really needs more of a one-on-one situation, so we're pretty solid on the 416 employees, but continue on the paraprofessionals.
Yeah.
But obviously, and I think this is a needs assessment. It should. I mean, this looks drastically different than last year. Not that we're going to continue to do everything you see on there, from school safety to pay and benefits, but some of those, I mean, those were very dedicated board directions. You guys were very committed to giving, getting the second SRO. You were, the pay and benefits. We know those are going to continue, but these are very detailed focuses that you see, and the tiered intervention with ELA, getting our teachers licensed as well. So I guess before we turn them loose, thoughts from the board is that we do need to complete the far right column. Not tonight, but no different than the vision. You guys start giving me some things and bring it back next month.
All right, anything else, Rob?
Just to kind of echo the thoughts of every other building, we're short on pairs as well. And it's a good thing. Some of our pairs are moving into that next step in their profession. Our pairs are becoming teachers.
Yeah.
And so we've lost one to Prairie View for a teaching position. And then the replacement for that person was a para at the middle school who's going to come over and is in a para to classroom program. So.
You, any more conversation with the co-op about, that's where our pairs come from, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
anything new, I guess.
Well, just on pay, so I mean, you guys also raised 5%. I think Payola did 4% across, so you know, that just continues to, we're already higher, and then, you know, so that doesn't help decrease that. It just increase, not by a lot, but still the gap increases a little bit more. You know, insurance could be a conversation. That is a big fiscal tag for this group. I mean, Payola would not say no to that, but they pass that assessment right on to us. So with us not doing that historically, that would need to be a conversation during, you know, negotiations for us. I would need to share with you if that would be a wish to you. Of course, you never know how many would take it, but if they would, I guess I'd have to bring to you worst case scenario that they all would take that health benefit, how many thousands of dollars that would. They are sometimes we do have aid positions open. Principals are able to have that conversation, you know, if you want to, you know, get health insurance. There are some paras that don't need it. Their spouses are covered or whatever, but that is an ongoing conversation that I know our principals do have with paras. So, yeah.
I know it's just it's just an ongoing
Yes.
problem, unfortunately. Probably not unique to this district by any means.
One thing, I mean, to offset the insurance, I mean, so Payola has a scale for paras. They ask if we want to follow that. There are districts in the co-op, I believe Pleasanton might be one that actually pays less than that. So, not the insurance side, but to entice, the board, we could look at paying more than what Payola does. To my no one does that, but they go the opposite side. So do we authorize, so our paras that are employed by Payola, they make more than what the Payola salary schedule is. That probably would be an easier early financial, you know, than everyone potentially jumping on health insurance. So I could look at that.
I think that would be something that would, if you could get us some numbers there.
Okay. I don't know what you guys think that are hiring these, so.
I mean, obviously, it's probably easier to hire an aide than it is a para because they're getting paid more.
That is correct.
And health insurance.
And health insurance. So
Right.
sometimes they need the health insurance. So that would get them, would that increase to 7.5 then versus just 7?
Yeah, or we pay them more hourly, which then if they need health insurance, and even if they could maybe go get that on the marketplace, but they'd have more take-home pay to do that versus something like that. So increase hourly.
If I have both open, I'll talk to a potential candidate about both and what they need, you know, and we always try to look at, like, if they have experience, you know, try to gain as much information so we can get them as much as possible.
What other thoughts from the board or comments? A lot of I mean, some of this we will keep in there. Obviously assessments, and I just wasn't able to show that. So some of the documents, some of that information I will just, obviously ELA. So some of this stuff I will put back in there, but I just wanted you guys to have first look before I put anything in there.
Obviously, we don't have the state scores back yet, but
We're
Rockville
not
doesn't
even
do
gonna have
state
those this
scores.
year, right?
We will probably not see them until September or October, is
So-
what we've been told from the state.
But as far as at Rockville
Yeah.
goes, they don't do state assessments.
And
We
we do
talked
have that
about.
information, and we'd have that for Ella, and we'll know more on Thursday. That's what I
Okay.
don't know what the state's gonna recommend, like if we in the needs assessment show more local assessment, the Fast Bridge data, or if they're wanting us to just show like the last 4 or 5 years of cohort data without next year. So we'll definitely have that by
Okay.
July. But to answer what Ms. Goodman said, I know you have that information, so, because you're pleased with that. So your local K1, 2 Fast Bridge data, go ahead.
It did go up in ELA across the board, so
Great.
for kindergarten, first and second. So it's great when you implement strategies and then we have the data to back up and see the improvement for that. Math, we had mostly improvement except for one grade, we kind of had a dip. And that led to some conversations in what do we think caused that? And part of it is we really focused really hard for the first half of the year on like algorithms and really deeply understanding addition and subtraction with regrouping. And then we got into some time and money and measurement, which doesn't have the same depth maybe that some of, when we're adding and subtracting for some of our kids. And so then we saw those scores kind of dip at the end. So we've kind of talked about how do we either kind of rearrange so that we can insert those in, or that we have spiral review. And we're also, that's one of my personal goals, is really focusing on some of our MTSS 4 math this next year. We really worked hard this year on ELA, so next year that focus will continue that, what we've started, and then we'll kind of bring up our math interventions as well. But I'm very pleased, especially with kindergarten. Kindergarten, it's not an apples to apples test because they drop off a piece of the base with the concepts of print. So at the beginning of the year, they have concepts of print, and then when they go to the winter, that's totally gone, and they add in more tests. And so we've tended to see kids fall. This year, we didn't see that fall. So a lot of that is, when we go back to what we did last year, that UFly integration across the board, K2, that's what we've done. And so I think a lot of that is the resource, that we have a vertically aligned resource, and also that we have those MTSS Walk 2 interventions. So I'm really pleased with our ELA data, for sure.
What buildings do we do the internal testing in?
All
All of them? So
Even
high school, yeah, Circle Grove.
I think it'd be good to get that data
He
for our,
definitely.
for our next meeting, just so we can, when we continue to fill this out, it'd be good data to
That's a
have.
fast bridge. Only kiddos we don't test are, and that is our seniors, We don't even do first time, do we? Do we, but not all year?
We do the fall and reading for seniors for the screening for dyslexia, but after that, we do not test. We don't.
And no math for seniors.
No math, because majority of them don't have math.
Yeah, okay, I thought that. So, yeah, Dave will definitely bring that. We have that information.
Okay.
So fast bridge will look at. All right, I think that's good for now. You're off the hook for a little bit. All right, so Broadmoor, as Mrs. Apple comes up, you can see identified the following barriers, ensuring time in the schedule for instruction. I have circled adequate throughout this document. Selection of resources that support the standards being taught, ensuring staff and time for interventions through the MTSS model. The budget item, the most essential budget action would be cost of piloting adoption ELA in similar time. So you're not alone, because Ms. Goodman was part of this. So you two take it away on, so I guess just go through those 3 barriers you've written up there.
Well, a
So-
lot is exactly the same as what Janelle and Dave were just saying, with making sure that we have enough time, the staffing, and the resources. And so looking at the schedule, enough time in the schedule, just ensuring our teachers have really responded to having the common plan time, and making sure that our schedule is arranged so that they have that plan time to plan for their instruction, and then also the larger chunks of instruction, instead of having 30 minutes here, 60 minutes here, 45 minutes here, kind of having more significant blocks of instruction. The selection of materials is kind of the same, making sure that we are using something that we have vetted as a program. They've kind of already talked about how we got together last week and we are working on the vertical alignment. It worked really well with math. We have seen great, improvements and just consistency with the math. And so I'm hoping to see more of that with the ELA. And then again, the MTSS model, Janelle just explained the walk to intervention. We've been doing that for going on 8 years now, and it really does make a huge impact in your data, your consistency, and just knowing where your students are in regards to their instructional needs, and then being able to meet those needs. We don't only do it though for reading and math, we also do it for social emotional needs as well. And so if the student needs something as little as a check-in in the morning, that's provided through MTSS as well. So some of our other items that were identified are simple kind of building level, like schedule, like the communication hub that you were talking about earlier, that kind
Talked a
of,
lot about
that kind of came up at our, there's not really, that was more of a broad, more kind of a planning that for our parents. And so nothing that's really, there
not
wasn't,
district wide, but
right, there wasn't anything really that I felt like came out of our site council meeting other than just kind of our instructional, keep it on.
Yeah.
types of things. I don't know.
our parents didn't have a lot of concerns brought up during the needs assessment by any means, which is good. Yes. And I think scheduling wise, it's gonna get, I don't know how to say it, is it gonna get a little easier next year with music teacher only going between 2 schools versus like 3?
Well,
gonna get
so that's
easier?
continues to be so on the new teacher and you hired tonight, so yes, Miss Moore's going back, she's not gonna be doing 5th grade.
Right, I don't know if
Um,
that helps at all.
But, so, there's a lot of vices in place when they set a schedule. One is we support our teachers with a lot of plan time. They know they're blessed with a lot of plan time. That makes it difficult, so just a reminder, our teachers in agreement get 380 to 420 minutes a week. Average, plan time for elementary teachers would probably be more like 250. And so it's about 2 hours that, additional that Cindy and Janelle are working on, that they have to give them that plan time, as well. Remember, we don't count before and after school, even though they're on contract as plan time.
Or PLC time.
Yeah, so that becomes difficult challenge, to implement that. And then, yes, the shared, music teacher. So they have developed a schedule, and the teacher you hired tonight, will be a 1 through 5 to help with that. There just was no way they could do it K-5. We're gonna, and Ms. Crater's gonna work on having kindergarten, music, but whether that's with, aid, and that is a new position. If you've been, I mean, we haven't had a elementary certified music teacher very long. I believe when Rockville was built, so that, 06 to Bond, 08, there were conversations when that all was happening, and you guys probably all live in the community, like, do we build 2 K-5 buildings or a K2 and a 3-5? I believe for many reasons, what we have now is a better model, that she has all her 3rd graders, she now has all her 1st graders, not just 3 here, 4 there. From PLCs and all that stuff you hear, and curriculum, that would have been more difficult. One challenge of that decision is the shared staff, that we have to work with. And why music comes up, but many of the other specials don't have certified teachers. PE does, but obviously our district's committed to providing a lot of PE time. Our kids go to PE a lot more than they go to music, so that certified teacher is needed more, or they can double up PE in a bigger space than they can do in music. So the 1-5, we're gonna try it this year with the new staff. I applaud Janelle and Cindy for working through that. That has not been easy. Kindergarten, so, we definitely still know the 2 big programs. I mean, the veterans program is probably a little easier, just to have kindergartners get up there and sing in that big gym setting. Not saying, but obviously the Christmas program, to stand up there, so. Janelle is working through that, so I don't want anyone to think we're not having kindergarten music. We will. It just, no, I mean, and obviously you can do the math. We had K4, Allison was doing 5. Well, now she's not having that, so we moved to 1-5. So now we just have to fill that in. And we thought we had someone in that, Jen's relation, but we don't, so. We'll continue to work on that. So that's, that would be ideal if somehow there's just someone in the community that just wants to come in and be with kindergartners and teach them music for a little bit, but, so we'll see what we can do, or if there's a position for an aide, but, so those are just some of the struggles we have. I'm not against any of those, and our teachers, I mean, I know we value their plan time and treat them like professionals, but those are just natural things that are difficult with the elementary schedule. So like for them putting bigger chunks of time together, that's great, but that's just made it harder. Because if you just look at a schedule and you put 30 minutes here and 30 here, that made their lives easier, but that just wasn't good for staff and students. So by them doing a good thing, it made their schedule even harder.
So I have like, what, 77 to 80-minute blocks, I think is what we came up with in version M, was it?
Double Z.
So, yeah.
But we're looking at more PE.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right, thank you. All right, middle school is Megan, it's coming up, Byron and Ty, you can join her, so she's not alone. And of course, Lanny was part of these, but ensuring staff in time for intervention through the MTSS model, making sure we had a resource to implement interventions with a new intervention specialist, continued professional development in multi-tiered systems of support, letters, and professional learning communities for budget items, hiring an ELA math full-time intervention specialist. So obviously the board was committed to that. That person is in place. So now it's not just a hiring, but supporting that position all year. Continue to partner with TASN. Remember, there's a lot of acronyms. Remember, TASN's the Technical Assistance Systems Network through an school improvement model leg of KSDE, neighboring school districts to model the intervention process. So Megan, take it away.
I think you did a great job, Dr. Bierman.
I just read.
No, so, number one, ensuring staff, for the intervention, we have, hired a specialist that's gonna be doing part-time math, part-time ELA. We've been, talking through that, what that looks like. We've met multiple times with TASC, and they've been an incredible support system. We really appreciate that resource, as well as, our TASC representative being, on my interview committee. I thought that was really kind of her to cross over, because I felt like it was, being the content specialist, it was great for her to do that. So, we are looking at, 3 and 3, so 3 hours ELA and 3 hours math. We are pulling data as we speak. Tiffany has been working on that. And we're pulling data to see, what kids we're looking what kids are, it's a little complicated, what kids are just ELA, what kids are just math. And then a lot of the times when you have kids in that predicament, that they actually in both areas. So we're looking at those numbers and what that looks like. They will be placed in a class. And it'll look more like a semester class, and we hope then that they graduate out of that once that they come back up to standards. So we've been talking through, what that looks like. Tiffany's looking at resources. She's pulling everything that we have right now and seeing what we can utilize first, because I think that we do have provided a lot of really great resources. We may need some things here and there. I'm not looking at a huge expense, I don't think, right away. So we're doing that. Making sure we have the resources, yes, and then the professional development opportunities, of course, MTSS. We'll hope that then Tiffany gets to MTSS with us. We are, for the first time, since I have been there, we're aligning the lit classes, vertical plan time. They've asked for that. So we thought that is a great thing to start with the MTSS happening, and a lot of those lit/ELA classes we'll be able to pull together and work together and find out what students really need us the most. Another thought, and then, I know, this year we kind of pulled 4 and 4, so 4 ELA specialists and 4 math to kind of start our MTSS process. This year it's going to take a team of all of our ELA teachers and all of our math teachers, and we're really excited for that to happen. And then we will be probably moving Wildcat times around a little bit, and then having those intervention times during Wildcat time on top of that, so that kids are getting all the resources and help that they need. So it's going to be a big change, and I know that we're up for it and excited about it. And to letters, we have quite a bit of our staff doing letters. I know I was unable to do it last year due to other courses I was taking, but I'm waiting for July 1st to happen. I think it's sometime in July, right? We find out if then letters 1. So I know I have some staff members. Wendy going to Rockville, I know, has talked about that. A lot of teachers now are like, ooh, we really want to be letters trained, and we want to go through that process. So we're waiting to see if the state will allow that to happen. And so then I think there's another crew that's going to be in the letters, the first volume, and then we have another group going to the second. And I know Dr. Berman did say that we have some staff members that are ending the end of their career, but I was excited. We have quite a few staff members in our building that I know of that probably have 2 to 3 years left in their career, and they think that they're going to retire, and they're getting letters trained, and I think that's amazing. Some of them are ELA, some are not, some are SPED. So that just shows the desire to want to learn more, so, and I love that.
Lanny, do you have any input?
No, the addition that this last year though was that new
Position?
extra math thing that I thought was very good to continue things like that. Was,
Thursday
Oh, the
morning.
math, well, I think, are you mentioning how we doing math, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
yeah, that too, but also she had the extra,
The Wildcat.
Morning.
Yeah,
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 so
that,
Thursday mornings.
I think that was, a good plus, and the parents even thought that was a deal, thought that was a good deal.
You have quite a few students come Thursday mornings for that.
Yeah, and I think that with this Ameren now too, she's builds really great relationships, and it's kind of like nice to see that kids, I think, come in that they just want to have conversation, and it leads to math help. That's helpful. So yes, it's definitely benefiting our kids. Other conversations were short, about 3 paras, but we've been working on that, and we hope to. We just seem to always get really great humans in our building, and I hope that continues. That we find who we need, so we're just currently searching for that. In Spanish now too.
Yeah, that was a big loss. You guys approved that resignation tonight, so that staff member, not only is middle school Spanish, but the district ESOL coordinator, so that's a big loss. She was here 13 years and did a lot of good work, so we now do have a position open, so.
I see you got it on Twitter.
I did, sir. I did. I pushed out there, and I've gotten several texts today, and I will say that it is a big loss, and she is equally feeling sad and is making choices for her family. It's not that it has anything to do with our district and the love for Louisburg. So she has a lot of love for us, which also feels good.
Absolutely. Thanks. Oh, and she mentioned a little bit, but now publicly, but it is now Dr. Hankins. That's a big milestone.
Congratulations.
Megan has finished her doctorate through the University of Baker and walked, and so that's a big milestone. So just wanted to
And a lot of support from Dr. Berman, so I appreciate that.
that's
Congratulations.
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
If you'd written my dissertation, I would like them more.
Yeah. All right, high school, as they're coming up, the barriers for high school include staffing and the restructuring of current procedures to ensure tier 2 and tier 3 needs are addressed. Not having common plan time creates a roadblock to looking at data. When we determine the students that need tier 3 support, we don't have the time or the adult specialists to make the needed learning gains. We would need math and reading resources and this trained staff to meet these needs at tier 3 below grade level. So, Dr. Van Reen, take it away.
So, part of this is things we've already moved forward. The schedule that we have is set up for success for MTSS, but we just haven't moved in that direction. So if your kids have done Wildcat assistance, they're getting homework done, they're making that test, they're doing those things, but walk to intervention works at all grade levels. So we really could utilize that and have time for kids to move to get that support they need. So we don't currently have a reading specialist. We got lucky and got Jessica Gibbons from the elementary, so we know that she knows how to teach reading at that primary level. So we're using her for a couple of blocks that takes her out of special education just to gather those kids. Right now, a lot of that is their own students because they are lower and have those reading needs. But there's a lot of kids in our building that could be targeted for support that don't have an IEP. So those are the kids like subgroups that we're looking at. When you talk about losing our EL person for the district, that's huge for us because that's a subgroup that struggles, that needs that attention and that person and voice to help them. And so it's not that we don't have the setup, but we definitely will need additional staff that are experts to do that. So while we have great ELA teachers, they're not reading teachers. They don't teach kids how to read. They don't fill the gaps. They don't do those kind of things. And so in math, we do have the IXL, and we have kids that choose to be in that elective course. But when you have a walk to intervention, if you have a need, you walk and you go get help. And so what we need is that support system. And I'd love for that to be not a reactive. In a couple years, when we haven't brought all those kids to that proficient level, I'd rather be proactive and try to find some of those resources where we can start supporting kids now. And so that's one of those places where I think we could use that help. So those are the things that are going on.
The tricky thing at the high school level is, you hear the word at risk, and At the other schools, you know, kids are probably, that are considered at risk are probably in tier 2 and tier 3. At a high school setting, that's still kind of true, but then also you have kids that are at risk from just not graduating for, especially when you're dealing with more, 14 to 18-year-olds. There's a lot of more things going on in their life. And so, I think, we have a pretty good at-risk structure at the high school to try to get these kids to shake your guys' hands in May. But as Amy's alluding to, there's still some room for the MTSS. Sometimes that kid owes us, because MTSS is more skill-based. So, when they take the fast bridge assessments, let's just use something easy. Do they know how to do fractions? Obviously, that's just an example. So see, that's a skill base. But is that, so you could have a kid that doesn't know fractions, but they're on par to graduate. Vice versa, you could have a kid that, does know fractions, but they have a lot of issues at home, or they're not getting to school on time, or behavior issues, so they are at risk of graduating. So the high school has to pull those kids and support them, so kind of a dual model system there. Sometimes the same kids, but sometimes different kids.
Question, aren't we hiring a social worker?
We
I
are,
think that needs to go in there, because that feeds right into that.
and
That's a budget action.
How is that coming along?
Paola's hiring her tonight,
Oh,
or that was our recommendation.
I think we need to add that.
So yes, we are gonna have a social worker, full-time at the high school.
And then that's gonna allow us to have 2 full-time counselors now, right?
So, yes,
Versus-
they'll have a little bit different roles, so, but that person would be able to meet with students and actually have those kinds of conversations that, Mary Quinn, that is gonna be our academic advisor, would not be able to have. So on those days that are tough, like, we will have that extra person, so that's huge for us. for sure.
So we're gonna have 1 full-time counselor,
In certification, Mr. Chapman,
and then we'll have Mary as our,
student advocate, will be able to do everything except, meet with a kid in crisis.
and that's why
have
we're
his
getting the
social
social.
worker.
Okay.
We're fully staffed in many components, so the pieces of the puzzle will come together. The social worker that we recommend Pale's hiring is actually a resident, a parent, and has students in the district, so.
So do you get to interview them even
Oh,
though
she
they're
did.
co-op?
Yeah, she recommended. We had 2 very highly qualified candidates. It was tough for Dr. Van Ryn to decide, but,
It's always good.
That's lucky, yeah.
yeah, we're hopeful on that. But yes, I agree, social worker. Me too. So, it does, and at secondary level, especially the high school level, it makes it tough. They mentioned like that walk-to intervention. Well, you don't have bell schedules and classes set up for semesters, but it's just, in theory, MTSS, and we all support it, but it just is a tough animal at the high school level. These kids have so much going on, and like I said, sometimes we're just working on them, it's a success when they get to school, some of the things that some students are dealing with, so, and we have that position in place, the board authorized a couple of years ago, so, yeah, I guess we can kind of see how this, not that we will say we're piloting this at the middle school, because I think that position hopefully is here to stay, but I think that's kind of where Amy's at, like, potentially, do we look at doing something that we're gonna be doing for the first time ever at the middle school, potentially at the high school?
And you're fully staffed now, right?
Yes, we, yeah.
We're missing some paras, we had 2.
But I mean, as far as teachers,
Yes, we have, our science teacher is working on, he's the unique one, so we're still navigating how to.
yeah, but from a teaching standpoint, we feel
Yes.
good.
Thank you.
thank you.
Well, I will put all this together and bring this just as another discussion item. We can just continue to discuss it until we go through that. This is on our website. The board tasked me to put kind of a outline budget calendar together. I don't know if that was last year or 2 years ago. And can you blow that up a little bit more? And so this is on our budget page on our website. And so, we are just marching through this, just like, that's okay if you can't, but just Well, just for a board reference, and you guys had approved this,
3 lines, 3 dots,
It's probably what happened.
blow it up. You
Where you see it?
Zoom.
go zoom over
Thank
to the
you.
right.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
So, just was a narrative, it talked about, kind of the 5 areas of consideration that we look at. You've heard a lot of those, tonight even, you see a lot of those acronyms on there, but we look obviously at student enrollment, just not physical numbers, but how many at-risk get special ed, MTSS. You could have a large class with low needs that maybe doesn't take as much staff, vice versa, you could have a smaller class with high needs. The state funding formula, so obviously we have to see what the legislators approve every year. So I'm in that middle area, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Capital improvement, so we talk a lot about that area. Staffing, teaching and learning resources, and then the fixed cost. So from utilities to fuel to what you approved tonight, property insurance, health insurance, you name it. And then kind of the calendar. So from January to April, we're going through the building needs assessment. Appreciate the board members' support and site council on that. We're looking at preliminary budget tasks, so we're analyzing the current and prior year expenditures, modifying. We're looking at creative solutions. I always am trying to find those, bring those to you, have conversations. Example last year would be, and not that we put it to rest, but maybe on a back burner is what we do potentially with solar modifications. And so I think it's always important to continue to look for some of those expense savings. Obviously, if there's revenue generators, that's important too. April and May, legislators are wrapping it up, so we're seeing what comes out of their session, and then also we're negotiating. And so we do that every year with our teachers. The goal is to settle by May, which we did in June. So where we're at now, Katie and I are working on end of the year transfers. We'll have the end of the year fiscal year meeting in June. We attend the state budget workshop. We try to attend the first one, so that is next week, or excuse me, this Thursday down at Greenbush. Some are for a couple more weeks, but we do try to get to one of the earlier ones that the state does host. The budget software is still not out. So as soon as that gets out, then we can start putting in some numbers. It's just one of the nuances of how the formula works. I know we're about ready to start paying bills and salaries in July, and we don't have the budget set, but that's just how that rolls through there. In July, the board, by statute, will be required to at least adopt the resolution to exceed revenue neutral. Doesn't mean you have to, but there's state statute that you have to do it by a certain date to even allow that. Then in August, obviously, provide a preliminary budget for publication. We had a budget workshop, so in July we can discuss that. September, the public hearings adoption. So this is on our website. The state is looking at a new finance formula. There are the State Department, legislators, superintendents are on that. We get updates from that committee. State board members are on there. I think that's still, I don't believe that's for next year. They're looking for the following year. So the funding formula is very complicated. So I think that committee's looking at that. So if you take away what weighting, what does that do to a district versus another district? One thing about our great state, and I've lived all over the state is very different, and there are needs vastly different. So what St. Francis needs versus Blue Valley or Hutchinson and every district in between are vastly different. So I think that's what I've kind of gathered in listening to some of what the finance formula, they realized you could argue the current finance formula has, I mean, let's just call it winners or losers. I think if you're not careful, you potentially have more of those. So we know our district's in a unique situation with a high assessed valuation and not necessarily a high student population, and definitely not a growing student population. That creates extra burden on us locally, because as you guys know, we continue to lose state aid. So we'll continue to monitor that, but this goes hand in hand with the needs assessment and the budget. So I just wanted to share with the board, this is on our budget page on the website. or for patrons to see. And I think we do a nice job, not only just following the budget calendar, but what's mentioned above throughout the year as well. Okay.
All right. 4.3, review of recommended policy revisions.
You guys know KSB usually during the calendar setting provide 2 updates depending on what happens federally or at state level. So these are the traditional June ones. They're in your packet. This is just for review next month based off tonight's conversation or throughout, between now and July 14th before approval. So they always do a nice job. What Ms. Yoder has up here kind of giving you the cliff notes and then also the policy revisions. So, and then if there are, and then they say if they're revised or new. So there are 12 existing policies that they're asking to revise, and it kind of tells you why. And then there's 2 new policies. I always try to point those out. So the first one, if you go down a little bit, is GAACB. It's the third one right there. So it just says House Bill 2160 brought about the Kansas Municipal Employee Whistleblower Act. Although districts already have a policy in place with some whistleblower elements that are required for federal funds, the specifics of this law require its own standalone policy. And the policy must be prominently, yeah, why can I pronounce that word? I guess I need to do letters training. Posted where employees will see it in the building. So that is a review and adopt based off House Bill 2160, the policy that is in there. The next one that's new is JBCD. Probably won't affect Louisburg that much because we're not a military area like probably your Fort Leavenworth, Fort Riley, Manhattan Junction City area. But that's just based off House Bill 2102. This policy provides advanced enrollment of a military student whose parents or person acting as a parent will be stationed in this state in the succeeding school year. No proof of address shall be required at the time of enrollment. Obviously, if for some reason that happened, we will follow that. But there are probably some districts are down by Wichita with McConnell Air Force Base and others that's going to affect a lot more than us. But obviously, we would handle that situation and improve that. So those are the 2 new ones. Every other one is a revised policy. And then the policies are in the packet that Ms. Yoder sent out as well. So I don't know if anyone had any questions. I don't have any concerns about these. But, I guess if
There isn't any of things we've just changed. It doesn't hit any of those, does it?
no, it doesn't. I did, yes. Yeah, well, we just have had lengthy conversations. Yes, the answer to that is no. And then the other conversation with this, and we can ask her to come back up, and that was a second part of this was Dr. Van Reen met with her building leadership team. So come back up to the podium, Dr. Van Reen. And I believe it was unanimous with her teachers, but I let her discuss it. So what the board approved when we talked about cell phones at the high school was what you see at the top there. So I'll just let you read that. And then when Dr. Van Reen and Mr. Pickman took us back to their building leadership team, so that's made up of teachers from all contents and that really are kind of that teacher leadership cadre, that group. They are proposing what is in red. So take it away kind of on that conversation.
So we started talking about, what it was gonna look like. We were going through all of the different steps and the conversation just got to, if we have the pockets, now we're gonna fight the pockets. So maybe we should just go to like, it doesn't exist, it needs to stay in your locker. That way we're not, it's the same argument as what they feel like they're still gonna have that time where they're gonna have to say, put it away or go to the thing. Then the end of the class having to get them out. And I know Jimmy talked about that, having some of those concerns. And I wasn't concerned about someone stealing them, but their concern is just like the transition time and the putting it in and taking it out. So their request was they would prefer that they just don't come to class. And so we know that kids will probably still have them in their backpacks. We understand that, but we still have the consequences and the things that the steps will follow. So none of that changes. It's just that location for the kids, just to make sure that they, during learning time, that they are not out.
So it's not like the middle school policy where that's all day in the locker. So it's during the hour. So instead of the pockets, we prefer in your locker, like Dr. Van Reeves will some have it in their pockets or in their backpack or coat if they do though, at the policy.
The same consequence.
But,
Yes.
so the high school, they can have it out, and I know many of you have high schoolers. Rob will have 2 girls, but they can have it out before school, after school, during passing period, during lunchtime, which that's what we talked already. They weren't gonna be able to have it out in class time anyway. Now it's instead of those pockets during those blocks plus advisory Wildcat, it just needs to be that way, a teacher, we run in it with tardies as well. Like, what is a tardy? Is it when his son's walking through the door, or does he need to be seated? And so, you start getting at all that gray. So no different with this is when I say class is ready, are they all 24 are supposed to be in there versus, nope, we're ready to go. So it just kind of helps with some black and white.
I personally like this better, new one.
I like it too.
Yeah, a lot of the new phones, you set it next to another one and they start wanting to share information and contacts and stuff. Unless you have it turned off, which is
Unlikely.
unlikely.
And how many teachers were on that committee?
So we have 10, I think that's sit there,
So that's what,
8 to 10.
and they were all in
Yes,
favor.
Do any of them happen to have high school students themselves?
Yeah.
Okay, just because that's just a little bit different
Yeah.
perspective, so just curious.
So we have. We probably have.
Okay.
Do you think we'll see an uptick in tardies because kids are now going back to their lockers to check their phones?
Well,
They don't normally they don't use their lockers a
you
lot.
can read what's in red. They're not, so if they leave the classroom.
No, I'm talking in
In
passing.
passing.
Oh, in passing, I got
Because
you.
a lot of kids don't use their lockers. Of course, now they're going to be told they need to use them.
Does
Do
it,
you think?
I'm just asking, I mean, we know they're not gonna put it in their lockers, we know they're gonna put it in their backpacks or pocket or whatever. So should we, I mean, it says must be placed in student lockers. But we know as soon as they walk out of the classroom, that's not going to be policed, but it's what we're saying we're gonna do. So is that what makes sense, or should it be must not be visible in the classroom, or I get the clarity of that, but that's not what we're really
And
gonna.
I think one of the comments were, you have the follow-up to that, so basically that protects the teacher from, it fell out of my pocket, or it fell out of my backpack, so they can't do that. So if they don't put it in their locker, that would be the thing. So I don't know, because it's too hard to police it otherwise, so just knowing, I mean, that's, I think, how we even tell the kids, like, this is our expectation. I know what you'll probably do, is you'll probably put it in your backpack, but if it falls out, or if there's, something happens, you understand, like, that was not where it was supposed to be.
Or rings.
How long have we had the policy at the middle school? 2 years?
No, I think that's
So
been in place.
every single one of these kids has had this policy.
If they've
That they've
attended our
had for
middle
3
school.
years at
But
middle
the
school.
difference is in the high school, those kids don't go to their lockers.
Oh.
I'm just saying currently, I mean, I don't even know if my
They may
kiddo
start
would
using
know
their
her.
lockers now.
Yeah, that's the thing, they will, they're all assigned one, I mean, they could use it, and for your, talk about time, like, our kids we have a 1-minute bell, and they have their loiter spot, they have their corners, their spots, and their people, so they will still find their time, I think.
Yeah, so that's good for the board. Not, I don't know if you know that when we visit, I don't know if we've even heard that. So there's a 5-minute passing period. The bell rings, you leave. You really go 4 minutes, and then after 1 minute left, they get the 1-minute warning. Always they hear that. So hopefully if they're on their phone, they're still hearing that to get to class.
I guess there's nothing that says if this doesn't work for a semester or
Oh,
something
no.
that we can't
It'll-
revisit
it will
and
be-
change things.
Sure, all big things like that will get tweaked a little bit, so.
Guess there's not a big difference in where they're stored. This is all that out.
You're just taking the risk. That's on you.
That's on you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the consequences were.
Yeah.
And
Because they could
place to
easily
prevent it,
say in the first one that, oh, it's in my locker anyways, and not put it in the
Yes.
right? I mean, they could have said that to begin with.
Well, it's like anything else, you got consequences and anything you do, you supposed to follow the rules. If you don't, follow the law or whatever, you get consequences.
That's right.
Are we voting on that? It's not.
Yeah.
No, this is,
This comment,
this is
I
good.
think it's.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you hearing that because it would be very hard to go back to that team that, that we really want to do it right. And if you have 10 people that said this is the better way, it's hard to go back and say we can't do it. So I appreciate hearing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
then if you have, between now and next month, as you have more time to review the KSB policies, just let Jim or I know before. The July board meeting is really late, it's July 14th, latest we can have a meeting, so. And, but yeah, those will just be pushed forward to an action item next time. Speaking of an action item.
Okay. 5.1, approve the property viability and workers' comp insurance renewal.
Come on up, Mr. Elliott. So, each year, we work hard with our insurance broker. Elliott's Insurance does a great job, helping us, renew this. As we've told you before, but just as a reminder, property casualty insurance, unlike other insurances, has become more difficult. So with our health insurance broker, which is IMA, we're currently with Blue Cross of Kansas. We can't get Blue Cross of Kansas City, but there are other insurance plans out there. So at Blue Cross, our rates are going up. We can go to market and all that. There's just not currently a big market in Kansas for schools on the property and casualty. And so if you're a district our size, EMC, a lot of districts have for the pool, the KSB pool. If you're a large district, so like right north of us, Blue Valley, you can't get EMC because EMC doesn't want to cover large districts. You can get into travelers or the pool. So every district can apply and get into the pool. And last year I brought you that renewal and it was a lot higher. So I didn't do that this year just because if they were close, but they were in the $400-some thousand range last year. The driver of anything is going to be what you see there, the property, because you can see the premiums there. All those other things are needed, but you can see as far as annual premium aren't that high. In the board packet, you have the entire renewal packet, and you don't need to bring that up, that is in there, for simple, and then I've provided you 3 different options. As I said in my board notes to you, Elliott's was working with EMC on some options, and we do need to discuss those tonight. So what, Brock, I think if you kind of go through if we just renew apples to apples, which is up there, what we look at, and then the document you have in front of you is some deductible options that we can look at. So if you want to go that way.
Sure.
And Jenny will follow how you drive.
Stop me anytime you have questions. As Dr. Bierman mentioned, bulk of our premium here is all coming in the property. We have $166 million worth of property that we're wrestling around here. Keep in mind, that is a 90% value of what 100% to replace everything in this district would cost. We decided to do that 2 years ago. We've stayed there. There is a $75,000 wind hail deductible that goes with that. It's a little bit different this year. $75,000 deductible per building. And then we have a $75,000 deductible for everything else. So if we have an F5 catastrophic storm, we're gonna have a $75,000 deductible for the elementary school, middle school, this building, high school, every building we got. Another 75 for any outdoor property we have, stadiums, smaller buildings, that type of stuff. All $175,000 deductible.
So, so that's correct. So we'd be on the hook potentially on the worst case scenario. If you added up that 75 times 5 for our 5 buildings plus an additional 75, that would cover playgrounds, light poles, those things. So that is $475,000. With this new renewal that for 25-26, EMC is saying that's different than what we're currently covered until the end of June. But July 1st, that was an EMC change. So we're 75,000 per building and 75 to kind of cover our outside items. So just keep that in mind as we're talking. So now, obviously, where our buildings are located, the odds of that are pretty small. Probably Broadmoor, middle school and high school, that's pretty good at those three. So if you're looking at that, it doesn't get over to Rockville or doesn't come out here. On that case, we would be 75 times 4. So it'd be the 75 for the 3 and then, yeah, and plus the 75. So we'd be on the hook for 300 in that scenario. Right now, with this current one, if just this building gets hit, it would be 75 plus potentially with a playground, depending on how much it would be valued at. There's not a lot of things in this bill. We'd have to, is that little playground and these few parking lots worth 75,000 to turn that part in? If we're not, then it would just be 75. Same with Rockville. More where that plays in, comes into play would be over at the Broadmoor campus and just a high school, middle school that just have more outside. You know, we have sheds, we have sporting equipment, all that stuff located out there. So
We'll have some options on that later.
Yeah.
In just a bit. Again, property is the biggest piece of all of this. We'll go through line by line. For general liability, there are no real changes here. We have $1 million occurrence. With $2 million aggregate, we can pay up $2 $1 million claims in the policy period without getting into our umbrella. We have a $5 million umbrella. Most will pay for any one liability claim is $6 million. Our auto, not a lot of changes here. We played around with the idea of increasing deductibles here, try to save some premium. Unfortunately, it just doesn't really make sense to do so. Relatively small savings in the grand scheme to do that.
And the auto is very cheap, and even other carriers, they know EMC has crazy, it's really good premium for the amount of millions of dollars we cover in auto. Like if you had the same amount of auto or in your business or whatever, the amount we're covering for that premium, you wouldn't be able to get that. I mean, to insure, now our buses are getting close to $200,000 and bus policy is not very expensive. So even though that did go up a little bit, 38,000, but to insure everything we have, that's, you would want those rates as an individual, I guess I'll say.
It's about a third. It's
Okay.
about a third. I used to do this on the property. I would compare your rate, which is about 14 cents, to what I pay for my homeowner's insurance rate, and that's about 40 cents. Same thing on the auto. So it's about a third of what an average person would pay on their personal lines.
And I am actually surprised because think of the liability on those buses. They're why we're here. I mean,
It's terrifying,
our
really.
kids. So to insure them for that, but yet who is on that bus? So it is. I'm glad it's that rate because they are fully insured. But and we try for little tiny fender benders not to turn it in. I'm guessing, Katie, what we dealt with 2 or 3. So if it's a little fender bender, $2,000, we usually just take it to the body shop and not mess with Elliott's or EMC to avoid those. Obviously, it gets bigger. And Brock and Rick are really good sometimes saying, go ahead and turn that in. I mean, those aren't going to probably hurt. So they usually tell us when to turn those in and when not to. Okay, keep on going.
Okay, our inland marine store we're picking up, excuse me. We're picking up our equipment, tractors, our mowers. I think we're even picking up some band equipment here, that type of stuff. No real change here. Crime, the most that we're doing here is picking up a fidelity bond for your treasurer for this board, required by state statute. The cyber piece of this, I'll let Dr. Bierman
I'll
talk
talk
about this.
that. So EMC offers a cyber policy. We talked about this several years ago that actually we in 2022, because that's when we picked up what you see on the next line, the cowbell, that EMC is a very strong insurance. Probably one area they could stand to improve upon is in cyber. So you see last year we paid $27.81 for a policy. And looking into that, not just with, definitely Elliott's and staff agree to, but even other brokers will tell you, even the ones that not necessarily trying to drive competition away from EMC, but they also offer EMC insurance and kind of say it's just not the best policy. And then by having another policy, which we had cowbell, they don't stack each other. So it's kind of redundant. So the recommendation is to drop the cyber from EMC. Elliott's would agree with that as well. And then we did have a cowbell, similar one. It was actually going up even more. So it's probably in the packet. I should have had that information. It was gonna be like 13,000, I believe. The same policy was gonna be higher. I was able to get a traveler's one, even though this won't be through Elliott's. It's just a great way that I appreciate everyone at Elliott working with the school district, because they are losing that $9,200 premium. And we'll work maybe next year. Brock and I are having conversations today on how that could happen and get that back next year. But so travelers and the broker we're going through on that, they have the League of Municipalities rate. We need to explore and see how that maybe can work with Elliott's next year. But I bring that up because Brock and staff are really good in looking at that traveler's policy for our district and giving me some really good things to take back to them. The biggest thing was we started that cowbell policy on July 1st of 2022. All of you were around the table at that time. I wouldn't know, but Brock's the one that said, make sure that they have a retro date. And so in our policy with travelers, it says they'll cover anything that, I don't know of anything that's happened in cybercrime, but you never know. So there's no lapse in coverage. So even if something, July 2nd comes up and some type of cybercrime happens to us, that happened on June 30th of 2023, we're going to be covered now by the travelers. If we wouldn't have that in that window, we would be on the hook if we don't do that. So I just applaud Brock and staff for bringing that up as well. So that's why it says travelers there. And you'll have that as a second motion in the recommended motion. So back to linebacker.
Linebacker, I actually sat down this year and I wrote linebacker out and tried to figure out what it actually stands for. Still can't figure it out. It is your directors and officers, so that covers your board here. It covers your teachers professional. It also covers your employment practices liability. If you fire somebody, don't hire them based on race, creed, religion, etc. They file suit. That's where we're going to pick up our coverage. Workers' compensation here. Dr. Bierman went to the marketplace, got an option for this as well. And I apologize, I don't recall who that was through. It was
say SunTrust, but I know it's probably not right. But
relatively competitive with EMC. EMC uses the package.
Stone Trust.
That's what it was, thank you. EMC uses the package and the workers' compensation to kind of work off of each other. And we lose the workers' compensation for EMC, we don't really know what that means to the package, so it's hard to compare that apples to apples, if that makes sense.
So the Stone Trust, it came in so you can see the premium's 43,578. It was like 42 and change. It wasn't even gonna save us 1,000. But when Elliott's went back to EMC and said, all right, the district takes out that workers' comp line, can you hold all these other lines? And the answer was no. And so we could have saved a little in workers' comp by going with Stone Trust. And probably Elliott's would have once again jumped in, made sure that was apples to apples. We didn't have to go that far because EMC said, well, you can do that, but these rates are going to go up. So I wish they wouldn't do that because I'm just trying to save, but they don't play that way. So that is still with workers, or that workers' comp is still with EMC. We have a good mod, and that's on the second page under workers' compensation. Last year, we were at 0.88, which meant we received a 12% discount last year. This year renewal, it's a 0.82, so we're receiving an 18% discount. So you want to stay under the 1.0. So if we're at 1.0, that 43,578 would be up 18%. So we do try to work hard with having policies and procedures in place for accidents at work. And that's what helps that mod go down. So I know many people, when I talk workers' comp and I tell them we're at a 0.82, they're jealous. Many are not that, and Brock obviously deals with many municipalities and schools that he knows they're not there either. You could actually be over. You could have a mod of 1.2. Now you're going to pay 20% more
it can get a lot worse. The worst one I've seen is 2.5.
Oh, so yeah, you would,
That is based on 3 years of experience. The next year that's coming on is a good year of experience, so I anticipate that to get a little bit better next year. When you get this low, it takes some time, some real dollars to make a big impact, so I'm not thinking it's gonna be a 0.6, maybe a 0.7, something like that, 7, 8, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, last thing I've got, our umbrella, we do have a $5 million umbrella. Again, like I said, we can cover a $6 million liability claim. As you can see, as you look down through this thing, premiums up across the board. Unfortunately, that's not new for this board. Feels like every year that I come, I say, hey, insurance market's on fire. It's not getting any better. Maybe it's gonna get a little better. It's not getting any better. Maybe it'll get a little better. It actually is starting to get better. And it doesn't look like it when you look at this. But the market, which we've described as hard for the last 4 years, is starting to soften a little bit. You can see that in what we're gonna go through here in a little bit. Property's still rough. But a lot of companies are reporting profits for the first time in 5 or 6 years. So maybe some light at the end of the tunnel that's not a train. But we'll talk about, sorry.
that's all right. So now the options, the packet you have, probably the best if you just put that staple apart and put them side by side. So where it says black USD 416, just put them, this is the packet, I just got this. Maybe put them all three beside, so when we have these conversations, you can see what the board taste is for, to go for. And I just caught, like Brock says, the driver is property. So as you look at the top, with the one we just had, if we do just renew as is, even though remember, there is a change in that. That's not apples to apples, even what's up on the screen. Because now it's 75 per building per occurrence, plus another 75 to take care of our outside stuff. So now if you look at the middle one, so that's 257, 416. The middle one has 233, 364. All the other numbers are the same. You can see the change, percentage of change goes from 21.10 to 8.91. The difference in this policy, and it's on the second page, that is the deductible. So instead of a $75,000 per building deductible, we would move to $100,000 per building deductible. But, and that would be for, fires, floods, vandalism, those things. We would go to those are not up there, they're in the sewer pack. And we would go to a $250,000 per occurrence for wind and hail. That would be a tornado as well. So on that, worst case scenario, I just said before on our current the policy that was up out there, worst case scenario, we'd be on the hook for $475,000. We hope and pray that never happens. In this middle policy, worst case scenario, all our buildings get hit by an F5 tornado. We would be on the hook for $250,000. Now, one building gets hit, one building catches fire, one building, whatever happens, instead of on the hook for 75, we would be on the hook for 100. So take this building, something happens to it. Right now, even renewing what's up there, 75, it would be 100.
Caveat, 250 wind hail, even if it is one building. If it's wind and hail, it's still 250, doesn't matter if it's one building or every building.
Yeah, thanks for that.
The biggest difference here is that if we've got 1, 2, or 3 buildings and it's not wind hail, it's 100,000 versus 250,000. So we're essentially rolling the dice on $150,000. And when we go to that next proposal, that'll make more sense.
The Sarai caught it, but it is a little confusing on,
It's not written, if you scroll to it, I hear what you're saying, I think it's just a typo,
yeah,
so.
there's a call on the one that's 100,000 AOP with a 250 wind hail.
Is that the packet I gave? It
Yeah.
would be up here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in the
it's a packet, on the second one, but it's the middle one you're just talking about.
Yeah.
It says deductible on the left, 75K.
I actually don't have this in front of me, so
Yeah.
I'm flying blind.
So you changed the 24-25 deductible
Sorry.
and replaced it with 100,000, and it should still show 75.
They're flipped.
On the middle one, I thought what I got
I think they're
from.
flipped.
I thought I got from staff the 100 and 250.
Mine shows 100 and 250.
I know, but I think that should be the last one, because it's
No.
Well,
more.
that's what I'm asking.
No, the last one.
So
Talk
this,
about this and back.
The
No,
last one's
yeah,
a better
here-
deal.
yeah.
Last
So
one.
this,
Well,
well,
this
that's
would actually still show
last one's
$75,000
just
because that was last year's deductible.
Yeah.
And this one would show this for
The last one is
Winnipeg,
Oh,
better
okay.
deal.
100,000
So
for all
that's-
other.
Next one will be wrong too.
Are these,
Oh, no.
flip
I think they're
like this?
flipped.
Okay, yeah.
This
No,
would be this?
I know what I'm talking about. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, so, yes, if you're looking at the middle one, this still needs to say 75. But this 100 actually still needs to come over to the right column.
Okay.
Because we have two different conversations.
Yeah,
So that's,
100,000 all other perils.
so the middle one, yeah, because I can't change what we currently have. This should say 75, because I can't change what we're currently doing. But the 100 does come
Oh,
into
yeah.
play with what we
That
discussed.
should
So really, you
still
have
be
100,000
75,000.
standalone building
And this
deductible,
100,000 is
and then
actually
250 per
100,000
occurrence for
all
wind and
other
hail.
perils.
So that's why, I should not have changed,
Depending on what happens.
With a
depending on our.
25,000.
So what's the last one? Maybe that'll help.
Okay, so then the last one, if you go to the last one, well,
That
let's
one's still
first
on there.
see the rate. The rate goes just to
Yes, but
223,029, only a 4.69% increase. So I didn't change the deductible on that one, 75. This is $250,000 per occurrence. So this one, if this building, something happens to, we're not paying 100, we're paying 250. On a big storm, it's the same thing.
For whatever, it's 250, no matter what the situation.
Covered cause of loss, $250,000.
No matter what.
One building, 6 buildings, fire, wind, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
$250,000
roll the
out of
dice and go here, but I don't.
Just seeing the two, and this is just my thoughts.
We have.
If we had like one campus, like all the buildings were within one block, you know what I'm saying? Like this building was in town, Rockville was closer, I think it would make sense to do this last one. But since we're so spread out, I mean, you're talking 10 more deductible to protect us.
Say that again now.
So which one?
Well, the difference in deductible, like if we just stay exactly where it is, we'd increase 11%, which would be like 42 grand. If we did the second one, which I think this is what, Dr. Bierman, is this what you're endorsing?
I think the second plan, which unfortunately I messed up, so I mean, make sure that, it should say on the second page,
Yeah, yeah.
that top, should say 75,000 per deductible, that's this year. Where I got the 100, and that still is, yes, it's 100,000, and I'm gonna keep using this building. This building burns, floods, vandalized, those will be some of the things you can think about. 100,000, and that would be per building. So if we had two buildings happen to this and Rockville, we'd have to be on the hook for 100,000 each. I'm saying the right thing.
No.
That would
No.
one, so it's hard to kind of think about that, but if we had a fire, we had a wildfire that we couldn't control, and it hit 3 of our buildings, $100,000 deductible is a per occurrence deductible.
Okay, per occurrence.
Option 2, which we're currently talking about, is a per occurrence deductible. We just have 2 different deductibles it could be.
So the math of it, sorry, but I
Okay.
mean, the math of it worked out, and I don't remember, I'm rounding numbers here. But the two real savings options are to go to 100,000 all other perils, which is like your
Fire,
fire,
lightning, falling
water, all of those
objects.
things. And a $250,000 wind and hail deductible, which would save us, again, rough math, but it was like $24,000.
Yeah, because it goes from
Yeah.
42
Yeah,
to 18
so it's
to
like
8.
$24,000.
Okay.
Or the other option would be to go to a $250,000 all perils deductible. Doesn't matter what it is. The deductible would be $250,000 and the savings was around 34,000.
So, but what I'm hearing from you is you think
The middle
the
policy.
middle policy is the
But
best.
you're only saving 10 from going from this
Yeah.
to this.
And you
But you
lose a lot
could,
of,
it could
And you
cost
lose-
you,
lot of coverage. And it's a stair step because you heard Brock say, I mean, the markets, I hope it's stabilizing, but it's also crazy. And so there's potential that if we stay with EMC,
No.
that they're gonna force all people to go to 250. I mean, so this is an option for next year. They quoted us this. This might not be an option forever. So instead of going from here to here, let's go here. We've only had one claim, and my tenure here, and that wasn't actually under EMC, that was Bright Specialty when the high school gym roof built back like a sardine can. So, not saying things don't change, and let's hope and not, but, buildings are pretty safe, and remember when it comes to hail, unlike your home, cosmetic is not covered, so if we had a bad hailstorm, and if you look at our roofs, all the flashing, metal flashing, that'd be beat up, that wouldn't be covered on any of these plans. So your house, obviously, and your shingles and gutters, that is covered usually, but not on this. So when it says hailstorm, it's like, and it would take big hailstones, like golf ball, these roofs can, but you're talking like hailstorms we usually don't see, softball, baseball size. Because if it doesn't look good when you walk this roof, it's not being repaired. Is this roof leaking now? That's gonna be that. So, because we have flat roofs, homes are different because you can see the shingles and everything else. So no cosmetic, I mean, I want to make that clear that you're not covering just to make it look good again. That was already not covered. We want to change the stuff that's dented, and we would have to repair that on our own. So yes, I think the middle, to give us some premium adjustments, so it goes from 21% to 8.9. You can see then in bold what it makes the overall percentages. So then instead of our overall insurance going up 11.37, it's going to go up 5.31. You have the far right one, we'd only be going up 2.44. But to get an overall insurance renewal increase of 5.31%, I mean, I think that's pretty good. And we did it several ways. It's just not the property change, but it's how we changed some of the cyber plans in there as well. You can see the percentage change is dropping 100%, dropping 23%. Some of those others, crime went down 16, workers' comp, or healthy, went down 7.2. So we do have a healthy and hopefully continue healthy contingency reserves. No different if you were talking about this at home. You won't want to do this without a savings account. And so our contingency reserves is that. So we'd be able to afford this if that happened. And we haven't had the history to do that, but we have to still be protected in case it does.
So if we go with this middle one, we're approving the 351,775.
Yes.
Yeah, because
The motion.
the motion that
Well,
doesn't match.
so what that, yeah, and I had that motion, I already had the math figured. That motion would say, if you went with that middle plan, it'd be 342,575. Because what you're doing is you're taking $9,200 off of that, the travelers. So the motion right
Oh,
now
I
is
see
for,
what you're saying.
that's why 366 doesn't match.
Oh, okay,
375.
that was for this.
Travelers is
Okay.
through a different one. So all these numbers, so when you see 366, 627 recommended, that's $9,200 less than what you see up on the board.
Okay.
If you choose the middle option, your motion's gonna say for EMC for 342,575 and still 9,200. If you add 342,575 and 9,200, you get 351,770. If you would have went with the last option, the motion would have said $332,240.
342,575.
$575.
Yeah, I didn't have that because,
He didn't have the number.
like yeah. And another, I mean, once again, Elliot's our partner, they live and breathe here. I mean, they feel good about, I mean, I won't put you on the spot, but you feel good about this middle plan?
It's worth having a conversation about. We've looked at deductibles before, and there's even one we looked at this year. You're gonna say $3,000. You don't see that here because it's not what we're talking about. So I don't know that I would recommend anything, but it's worth having a conversation about.
Yeah, I guess I should say, yeah, it's hard for maybe him to, I don't want to, yeah. I
Come on, Rob,
understand
you're
where
trying to
you're
put
going.
words in your mouth, right?
Yeah, so I hear publicly where he's going.
Thank you.
But I feel like we have the risk tolerance, it's just how we have to play the budget game and make sure we're protected. Don't feel good about
So
it.
I guess to Brian's point, we were gonna have a big deductible change this year, and they were gonna charge us about 15% more on the property. And it wasn't gonna really be an option. Deductible structure got worse, and it's gonna be more expensive, and we didn't have a set of it. So there's nothing that says next year, we're not standing here in front of you, and they go, hey, this is what we're gonna make you do. and it's gonna cost 20% more to do it. So I guess just take some savings while you can, would be my last thought.
Cause see, they didn't even offer this high deductible the last
No,
couple of
they
years.
didn't have
Cause
the
I asked
ability
about
to.
that, and that's,
Yeah.
we had the highest deductible you could get.
Correct. Now, I mean, if you ever have a tolerance for it, I can go up to $1 million.
Right.
So,
And another, and not tonight, but just, I mean, we went from 100 to 90. There is a potential if the board that you could lower that too, correct? I mean, EMC might insure us for 80%, or no, that's not 90.
I don't think they
I
would.
think
Okay.
that'd be, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a tough sell, and when we drop our percentage, our rate actually goes up. So it's not, you're not gonna see a 10% savings by dropping your coverage by 10%. You might see 6.5%. So it's probably, if they were willing to do it, probably not.
If we were to go to them today and ask to take a school that's at 100 to 90, I don't think they would.
Yeah, that's,
Which is why I say I don't think they would go to 80.
we might be skating by at 90 today. I would agree with that comment.
So by going this middle one, we're saving 6%, which is pretty big. Like you
Yeah,
said,
overall.
if you drop
Yeah.
10, to save 3 by making this adjustment, you're still being at 90% value replacement. We're only getting a 6% or 5% increase. I'd say it's pretty good.
and I will make sure the 75 and 100 is, I think we all understand, but that middle packet, the left side needs to say 75, that's what it is, and I'll add that 100 to the right, and that'll be the published document that we have in the board packet.
All right.
Got a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the property liability and workers' comp insurance renewal for the 2025-2026 school year to EMC for $342,575 and cyber policy to Travelers Insurance for $9,200.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the property liability and workers' comp insurance renewal for the 2025-2026 school year to EMC for $342,575 and the policy, or the cyber policy to Travelers Insurance for $9,200. Is there any further discussion?
Foot,
Yes.
Bose,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Tisdale,
Yes,
Goodman.
Yes.
thank you.
Motion
Thank
passed.
you.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Okay. 6.0 executive session. I move we go into executive session with the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and the Broadmoor Elementary principal to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under COMA to protect the privacy interest of an identifiable individual. An open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 8:35.
I say it.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session. Is there any further discussion?
Foot,
Yes.
Bose,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Tisdale,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion passed.
You know,
I guess it's really just staying over.
No, that's what I was thinking.
How my little thing got changed to like.
I move we go back into executive session with the superintendent and assistant superintendent to discuss an individual employee's performance pursuant to non-elected personnel exception under coma to protect the privacy interests of an identifiable individual, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 8:50.
I second it.
Moved and seconded to go back into executive session. Any further discussion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passed.
I don't know, probably in April, so I
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
sure.
So yeah, I'm just like Dave, I know the
little
moving
bit.
parts, but I don't know.
Okay, announcement 6.1, the 20, oh,
Seven. That'd be 7.
oh, I'm sorry, 7.1. The 2024-2025 end of year physical budget meeting will be June 26th, 2025, 7 a.m. at Circle Grove. 6.2, 7.2. The next regular board meeting will be July 14th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at Circle Grove. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn our June 9th meeting at 8:52 p.m.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the June 9th, 2025 regular Board of Education meeting at, what did you say, 9:52? 8:52.
Usually 9:52.
Any further discussion?
If we're lucky.
Bud,
Yes.
Bose,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Studeville,
Yes.
Tisdale,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.